Please be seated.
All right, let's go ahead and set forth our appearances.
John Will Kemp for plaintiffs.
Robert Eggler for plaintiff, Your Honor.
Brianna Switzler for plaintiffs. Francesca Bergery for plaintiffs.
Eric Peppermint for plaintiffs.
Brad Johnson, Eric Freeman, Michael Esposito, and Tyler Watson on behalf of the defendants.
All right. And we have one matter outside of presence?
Yes, Your Honor, very briefly. Your Honor, we have entered into a stipulation and an order is attached with defendants regarding Lisa King's past medicals, total past medicals. You recall that we had submitted that before she's had her recent treatment. So this provides that her past medicals are now $904,664.15. And I have an order here, and I have the exhibit to be replaced, which will be the new plaintiff's exhibit 101. 1001, excuse me.
We give this, you take that, right?
Yes.
So it gets filed quicker. I don't know how this stuff works. Can this be submitted to our inbox real quick?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it'll get signed today.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
All right. Just have them get it in there.
You want me to take it?
No. I mean,
Okay.
all your staff has to do, if they can, just have this submitted to the inbox, and it gets signed real quick.
Oh, okay, I'll tell him to do that then.
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't that right?
I
Isn't
was
that
gonna
right?
say you
Joel?
need the original back. It's a wet
I need the
signature.
original back to do
Yeah.
that. Judge.
No, you keep that.
Okay,
I don't want it to get stuck and lost and,
that's fine.
And just for the record, because the exhibit was already admitted on the 6th, the admitted sticker will still be the 6th. It's just gonna be now hard copy.
Thank you.
Yep.
because we get, we have less than a 24-hour turnaround time on orders, so it'll get done very quickly. Versus me filing it, and then what do you do with it after that? Scan it or something? I'm not sure.
I don't know, I mean, we used to do it. I just,
Mr. Egglet, I don't know myself. I really don't. I just know it magically appears in the inbox and I sign it.
yeah.
All right, are we ready to go?
Your Honor, our next witness, Mr. Delmar, just ran to the bathroom, but it should be any moment already.
Okay. What we'll do is to make sure, as soon as he gets here, let's go get the jury. We don't want the jury waiting for him, but we'll get them. They're right down the hall. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yes.
We're fine.
And Your Honor, while the jury comes in, we have the new exhibit 273 that I plan to use with this witness.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
All right.
If I could approach to copy this.
You can, sir. Yes. Admitted. All right, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
We do, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed lunch. And it's my understanding we'll be calling the next witness. Is that correct, Mr. Pepperman?
Yes, Your Honor. Our plaintiff's next witness will be James Delmar.
Okay.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
James J. Delmar, James Jaydelmar.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. Be cautious. It's on wheels.
All right, Mr. Pepperman, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, JJ. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. James, go by JJ.
I do.
JJ, can you tell the jury where you grew up?
I grew up in the Los Angeles area in a suburb called Bell Gardens, California.
And have you ever been married?
No, I have not
Single life?
in my life.
You started your professional life in the Navy, correct?
That's correct.
Was this during the time of the Vietnam War?
It was.
And were you deployed to Vietnam?
I did 2 deployments in Vietnam.
How long did you serve in the Navy?
4 years active and 2 years reserve.
What year were you discharged?
Discharged in 1971. I was separated in 1969, honorably both times.
Thank you for your service. Can you tell the jury what you did after the Navy?
I moved to San Diego, where I worked in construction and eventually went to work for the federal government. I got myself back in school after 10 years of being out of service, and I obtained a paralegal certificate from the University of San Diego, and I interned with a workers' compensation attorney who put me in service, making appearances before the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, representing injured workers. I did that for 25 years until I retired and came here in 2013.
What brought you to Las Vegas?
My passion for music. I recorded my first album, Hombre de Hielo, in 2001. I subsequently recorded another album in 2003 and 2005. I enjoyed the experience very much, creating and writing my own music. And I wanted to come here and isolate myself artistically to perfect my musicianship on piano, keyboards, and guitar, and work on my songwriting skills.
Shane, do we happen to have just a little sample of JJ's music?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance? Why do we need to have a concert in the middle of this trial?
Your Honor, it's his background and what he did when he moved to Las Vegas before he got sick.
How long is it?
10 seconds?
11 seconds.
11 seconds.
It's fine.
That's what I said, yeah.
Fine, Your Honor. 3 minutes is different from 11 seconds.
Thank
What were you playing on what we just heard?
It was guitar and keyboards on that track.
You played both?
Yes,
And what song is that from?
that's from my first album, Hombre de Hielo, and that song is called Waiting on You.
And did you ever have any commercial involvement with your music, or did you play it and write it for a hobby?
It was a hobby, but, you know, I think every artist strives for some level of notoriety and acceptance for their art.
Let's get to why we're here, JJ. When did you start drinking real water?
It would be 2017, probably the summer or spring of 2017.
What attracted you to the product?
I saw it on the shelf at Whole Foods. It was the highest pH water. Obviously, the summers in Las Vegas are extremely hot and arid. And so that's what attracted me. And I became an avid drinker and user of that product.
Did you ever purchase the 5-gallon home delivery product?
I did the following year, going into the summer in April, after carrying cases of real water out from Sprouts is where I was buying it at the time. I decided to get the 5-gallon delivery from Real Water, and I also rented the dispensary from Real Water.
Did there come a time when you got sick from real water?
June 14th, 2018.
Can you tell the jury what were the first symptoms that you began to experience?
I woke up that morning and I couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't walk. I couldn't ambulate. I was dizzy. I was disoriented. My vision was impaired. I crawled across the bedroom floor into the bathroom and hoisted myself up so I could relieve myself at the toilet. I hugged the wall, making my way back into the living room. I absolutely had no idea what happened.
Did you have any nausea?
Terrible nausea, and my main problem was thirst. I was just so dehydrated, and I was so nauseous I couldn't drink anything other than a sip or two of water for fear that I would just vomit it back up.
And those sips, those couple of sips that you were able to get down, was that real water?
Yes, it was.
Did you feel any fatigue?
I was so disoriented. Thinking back, that whole morning is such a blur. I can't say specifically fatigue. It was just disorientation, vertigo so bad I couldn't stand up. I couldn't sit up.
What do you mean vertigo?
Just dizziness, and I lost my equilibrium totally. I could only lay on the couch on my side and contemplate what my next move was.
What was your next move?
I called Phil Jones in Los Angeles because I had work scheduled with him on Saturday. This was a Thursday, the 14th. I canceled the work, and then I tried to get a ride to the VA in North Pecos. Called my landlord. His girlfriend answered the phone. They were in Europe, and they suggested that I call our neighbor, Richard, who's a fellow veteran. And I did that. It took me a while, but I got Rick on the phone, and they agreed to come and pick me up and take me to the VA.
So at this time, were you living alone?
I was.
You had no family in the area?
None whatsoever. I have no family, period.
You were calling your landlord and neighbors who were effectively strangers?
Pretty much so, yes.
And were you able to get someone to help take you to the hospital?
Richard and his girlfriend Judy agreed to take me. And then I set about trying to gather enough clothes because I was in pajamas basically at that time. I gathered socks, shoes, pants, and a shirt. And by the time I'd got this all over to the couch where I was at, they were banging on the door. Let's go, come on, we're here. Yeah, I kept saying, just a minute, I'll be right there, I'll be with you. Putting my pants on was just such a struggle, trying to find my feet and the legs. It's an absolutely incredible situation to be that helpless. I finally got my pants on and then boom, banging at the door. Let's go, what's taking you? I'll be right there. I got a shirt on and they were back again. Come on, what's going on? After the third time banging on the door, I was able to slip my feet into my shoes and get to the door. Unfortunately, there was a fence line from my front door out to where their car was parked, and I was able to steady myself on the fence line and get into their car, the back seat. And I was laying over on my side in the back seat, and they drove to the VA Medical Center in North Pecos, which was probably about a 20-25 minute drive from where I was living at Tenaya and Lone Mountain area.
When you arrived at the hospital, were you able to walk from the car to the hospital?
I intended to. I got out, but Judy sent something, God bless her, and minute we stopped at emergency, she ran inside emergency. And by the time I was able to get out of the car and steady myself on the roof, she was there with a wheelchair. And she rolled me in. Getting checked in is all very blurry. I don't remember too much about that. I think Judy was there and helped me get checked in. I had my wallet and my ID with me. And then they left, and I was waiting. I can't recall if the doctor said that they were going to admit me or what, but I assumed had I not been admitted that they would come back and retrieve me at some point in time.
Had you ever been as sick as you were at this time in your life?
I've never felt like that before. That was just an absolute incredible, incredible feeling to be just utterly useless to yourself, to not be able to get dressed. Never before.
When you got to the hospital, how were you feeling at this point? Were you fearful?
I was feeling just as terrible as I was. I was sitting there in a wheelchair in the waiting room. I was leaned over like this because I couldn't set up because of the nauseousness I was experiencing. And the security guard came along and kicked my wheelchair and said, "Wake up, you can't sleep here," which started my experience with the VA for the next 4 days.
Did they admit you?
They did. They first said that they didn't have a room for me and that I may have to be transported to a private facility. But then at some point in time, they said that we have a room for you. Like I say, this is all very vague to me, but I was transported up to the third floor. and admitted and put in a bed and a gown.
Was the third floor the intensive care unit?
I found out that that third floor is the terminally ill ward.
Did doctors express concern over your condition?
I don't remember.
Objection, we're leading the witness here. And let me go.
Your Honor, that was an open-ended question. What did the doctors tell you about your condition?
I don't remember hearing anything from the doctor the evening or the afternoon that I was admitted. It was the next morning that the doctor showed up at my bedside. And he had the oddest reaction. He goes,
Your Honor,
whoa.
this is now hearsay to the extent that we're talking about what the doctor is communicating to him.
Your Honor, it's his medical condition. Go ahead, JJ.
He looked at surprise and he said, "So you're still with us, huh?" And that's when he told me that he didn't think I was going to make it that evening.
Did they run tests while you were at the hospital?
I had needles in my arms and tubes running in and out of me. I know that they were giving me massive doses of steroids. And I recall getting a bag of fluids. I don't know if it was the afternoon that I was admitted or if it was the next day. At some point in time, they had cut off my fluids and just were hitting me with these massive doses of steroids. And my chief complaint was that I was thirsty. I was just so dehydrated. I was uncomfortable. I'd never felt that type of dehydration in my mouth and my throat. When I woke up the next day, though, I was able to drink some water, not a lot of water, but a little bit of water, enough to at least quench my thirst a little bit, but they were still hitting me with those steroids.
Shane, can we please pull up 273, page 2? JJ, do you recall them doing a CT scan of your liver?
On June 14th, to be honest, specifically, I do not.
This CT scan report shows coarse classification is present in the dome of the right lobe of the liver. Extensive fatty infiltration involves the liver, and there's hyperdense areas on the liver. Do you recall your doctors discussing these findings with you?
I do not.
Do you recall them expressing concern about the condition of your liver?
Yes, that's why I was there. They told me that I had suffered acute liver failure.
Let's look at your blood work. Shane, could we please turn to page 4? The AST, ALTs. This shows your highest AST level of 1,031 on June 15th. Do you recall your doctors discussing this finding with you?
I do not, Mr. Perriman.
What about your INR? Did they tell you you had elevated INRs?
No, sir.
Shane, can you turn to page 5? Page 5 shows your highest ALT of 944 on June 18th. Do you recall your doctors discussing with you that after 4 days in the hospital, your ALTs were going up and reached their highest point?
I do not, Mr. Perryman.
And Your Honor, we're still leaving the witness. Object.
That's if he recalls the discussion. How long were you in the hospital, JJ?
4 days.
And what was your condition when you were discharged? How are you feeling?
I was feeling better, but I was incredibly angry and disoriented. I was still incredibly thirsty. I couldn't get enough hydration. This wonderful nurse, Rhonda, traveling nurse from Chicago, took an interest in me. The only compassion that I saw on that floor the entire time I was there. And she showed me where they kept these cartons of cranberry juice. I would drink a pitcher of water, and I would ask the nurse to come and refill my water. And they would say something to the effect that, well, when I get done with my rounds, I'll come back and get you some water. And so once I found out where the cranberry juice was located, I went after it. And I would ambulate over there every time I needed something to drink. I didn't know how to fill the pitcher up with water. I wasn't that familiar with where the water was. And like I say, I was very disoriented. Nurse Rhonda was also the one on Friday, my first day there, that got me out of the gown and put me in pajamas and asked me that if I would like to go for a walk around the ward, if she was with me and steadied me. And I said yes. And after she got her rounds done, she came back and we walked around the ward. I was weak, but hanging on to her, I was able to ambulate around. It's at that time when she returned me to my bed that she said, "You got to get out of here." She said, "You know where you're at?" I said, "Well, I'm in emergency." She said, "You're in the terminally ill ward. Nothing good happens up here."
I have to object. One, we're in the middle of a narrative, and two, we're hearing hearsay from a nurse that's not a witness in this case. I mean, can we ask some questions?
JJ, after your interaction with Rhonda, the nurse, what happened next?
She said that she would be back the next day and that she would arrange for a physical therapy evaluation for me to see if my motor skills were sufficient so that I could care for myself at home.
And did that happen?
Like the angel she was. Yep. She showed up first thing in the morning. Shortly thereafter, the physical therapist came in, put me through a series of motor tests. I was uncertain if I passed or not, but there were no negative connotations to those tests. And then Nurse Rhonda asked me if I wanted to go for another tour around the facility, the ward, and I did. I walked around another lap with Nurse Rhonda, holding on to her. And when we got back into the ward, she offered to come back after her rounds were done and take me again, 2 laps this time, and then we could go outside and sit on the patio, which we did later on that afternoon. This was Saturday afternoon, my second full day in the hospital.
And eventually Were you discharged from the hospital?
Yes,
Did the doctors want you to go?
I forced my way out of the hospital on Monday morning when the new doctor came in. I'd asked why my fluids were cut off, and I was so thirsty and dehydrated. And they told me that, well, the doctor didn't order you fluids, and that I should talk to the doctor when they came in the morning. And Sunday they weren't in. Monday morning they showed up, this new doctor, and she came in and she asked how I was doing, and I said, "You're releasing me this morning. I'm not doing any more steroids. I'm not taking any more medication. You're getting me out of here." And she said, "Well, your blood work doesn't look right." I think she mentioned enzymes. And I said, "I don't care. You can't keep me here. My clothes are in that locker over there. I'll get my clothes and I'll walk." And she said, "Well, you're going to have to sign something." "I'll sign whatever you want. I want out of here."
What was your mental state at that time? How were you feeling mentally?
I was angry and I was confused, disoriented. I felt trapped. I felt that had I stayed there, they would kill me with this overloaded dose of steroids and no fluids. I absolutely was desperate to get out of there and get away from this regimen of care that they were providing.
And how were you feeling when you got home? Did you still continue to feel ill?
I had progressed a little bit. I could ambulate. I was weak, but I was able to go to the store, drive to the store, and get fruits and vegetables, and hydrate myself.
After you left the hospital, did you continue to drink real water?
I did not. One of the things that the attending physician mentioned to me on Friday morning, my first morning in the hospital, and Saturday morning, my second, and he was speaking to a colleague or a nurse or something there.
Your
That
Honor, hearsay. We've now got a doctor talking to a nurse.
Your Honor, we're not offering.
For the purposes of medical treatment and evaluation, that is.
Yes, he's offering it to prove the truth of what the doctor's allegedly saying.
It's an exception, I'll rule.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And he mentioned to the nurse or his colleague, "I can't figure out why this patient's potassium levels are so elevated." And I'm a label reader, and I knew reading the label of real water that they added potassium to that. It was listed right on the ingredients. So when I got home, thankfully, I discontinued my use of real water. I also stopped eating bananas and nuts and other foods that I thought were high in potassium. Just from a layperson's perspective, it seemed like he was concerned about my potassium levels, and I wanted to try to bring those down. I was desperate to try to resume some normalcy of my life. This hit me like a train wreck.
After your hospitalization in June 2018, did you continue to follow up with doctors related to your liver damage?
I remember seeing Dr. Kleski at the Northwest facility on occasion, yes.
Shane, can we pull up page 6 of Exhibit 273, please? JJ, this is a fibro scan dated November 1st, 2021. Do you recall undergoing this scan?
I do, to a certain extent, that Dr. Kleski had recommended, I think, a couple scans subsequent to my hospitalization.
So between your June 2018 hospitalization and this November 1st, 2021 fibroscan, approximately how many other follow-ups did you have in the interim?
Maybe a half a dozen.
And at the time of this fibroscan, did your doctors express any concern that there had been any progression of liver fibrosis?
My doctor never discussed any of these findings with me. There was never a discussion. I'd do a scan, and it was like I never did it the next time I would see them.
Are you familiar with Dr. Hudson's recommendations for all the plaintiffs in this case?
I am familiar with Dr. Hudson's recommendations.
He'll testify tomorrow, I believe, but assuming he is recommending blood work and annual fibroscans like this one to continually monitor for the progression of fibrosis, are you committed to doing that?
In a private facility, yes, through the VA here in Southern Nevada. I have a phobia about going back and treating with those doctors. I'm sorry. It's how it is.
JJ, how are you doing today?
My liver has intermittent mild pain, sometimes no pain, sometimes on a scale of 1 to 10, a 5 or a 6. There are certain foods that help with the pain. I'm surviving, I'm living. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. Life delivers you certain good times and bad times. I've always been a survivor.
You met with Dr. Sands, plaintiff's expert neuropsychologist, correct?
I did.
Okay. You told Dr. Sands that your illness from real water was your worst experience, correct?
That's my worst experience, yes.
And that is, considering that you were in 2 tours of Vietnam. Can you explain that to the jury?
When I served in Vietnam, I was a young man. I volunteered. Those experiences took me 10 years to come back from. I returned from war in 1969. 1979 is when I really started to pull my life together and get some direction. I was young, I was hardy, I was resilient. This thing with my liver, it hit me like a train wreck. It devastated my life. My interest in music, my ability to concentrate on difficult and tedious tasks is ruined. I can't sit at the piano and work for hours like I could prior to my injury. 20 minutes after banging out, doodling as I call it, I want to get up. I want to do something else. I'm an avid walker. I can go out and I can walk for several miles, and it's that mindless activity that I'm drawn to. Engaging myself intellectually, it's very difficult. It's frustrating. At first, I used to get very angry and curse violently and bang my fist. And after years, I've just accepted it. It is what it is. It's my life.
Did you have PTSD from your time in Vietnam?
I was diagnosed with PTSD from Vietnam, yes.
Did you have PTSD from your experience with real water?
I have an increased depression. I'm uncertain of Dr. Sands' findings. He didn't share them with me. But I have a deeper and more profound depression. There are times when I'm listless on the couch. It's a depression superimposed on a pre-existing depression, I imagine.
Did you also suffer a traumatic brain injury from your time in Vietnam?
I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, TBI as it's called.
What are your symptoms from that generally?
There's some cognitive symptoms. It's hard for me to differentiate between PTSD and the TBI symptoms, as the neurologist at the VA told me years ago, that they kind of dovetail together. So is it depression? Is it anxiety? I'm not really sure exactly.
Did you feel a difference after your real water injury in the severity of those symptoms compared to before your real water injury?
Yes. Like I say, I've lost my ability to engage in tedious and complicated tasks.
You were here when Dr. Sands testified last Friday?
I was not. I was ill and I had to stay home.
Are you aware that Dr. Sands is recommending future psychological and cognitive evaluations and care related to your real water injury?
I've heard that, yes.
Is that something you're committed to doing?
I would like very much to explore it, at least an evaluation. I would like to resume producing my art, writing, and working on my musicianship skills. I don't know if I can get there with cognitive behavioral therapy or not, but it's certainly worth exploring.
And are those types of skills and abilities something that has suffered since your illness from real water?
I have very little lack of interest. I produced my last album in 2018, 10 songs. Between 2013 and 2019, I wrote and produced 28 songs. I have 18 other songs that are produced and 90% complete that I worked with Phil Jones and his crew in Los Angeles producing. And those songs have sat. I've gotten those into a studio. For some reason, I lack the tenacity and effort to follow through and get those songs out there. And there's some truly great players on that Phil brought in for me. There's Phil Parlapiano, one of my favorite artists, plays piano and mandolin on some of those songs. The late Brett Tuggle, Fleetwood Mac, he plays keyboard on some of that stuff.
And those struggles have been since your real water injury?
Absolutely.
Thank you, JJ. Those are the only questions I have. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Can we approach prior to the start of the cross?
Okay.
Counsel.
And I appreciate it, Counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Delmar, Michael Esposito, ladies and members of the jury. As you've probably heard me say to other witnesses or other plaintiffs in this case, my job here is to walk you through testimony you gave a deposition. You recall giving your deposition in this case?
I do.
That deposition was on August 8th of 2024.
Sounds correct.
Okay. You recall providing that testimony under oath?
I do.
Okay. And you had an opportunity to review your testimony after the fact, correct?
I have, yes.
Okay. And so as you sit here today, do you have any reason to believe the testimony you gave in that deposition was not true and accurate?
No, none
Okay.
whatsoever.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Delmar. So let's get started. First and foremost, you said you don't have family. You do have one child that you're estranged from, correct?
I do, 25-year-old son, or 50-year-old son.
It's been 25 years since you spoke to him.
That's correct.
Okay. Never been married?
Never.
You live by yourself?
I do.
Okay. And before we get into a lot of this, I just have to ask the question. That morning when you woke up, you didn't call 911. Why not?
It didn't dawn on me. I can't answer that question other than to say I didn't think of it.
Okay. But instead, your thought was, I'm going to call my landlord?
Well, my landlord lived in the front house from me. He was right there, I thought, and he could just run me to the VA facility as opposed to having an ambulance show up and, you know, it was just quicker. It never dawned on me to dial 911. That's the truthful answer, Mr. Esposito.
And I fully anticipate you'll give me nothing but truthful answers, Mr. Delmar. I promise. That being said, though, I'm just trying to understand how cogent you were in the moment, because you were able to evaluate who's closer, correct? And you were able to evaluate, I'm assuming, the cost and the speed of having an ambulance show up?
Well, cost and speed were irrelevant to me. I didn't factor into that. There were people that were close by that I thought I could rely on, and in fact, my neighbor Richard came through for me.
Excellent. Okay. And so now that we know the mental state, where you were on that day, I want to backtrack just a little. Okay?
Sure.
You said you were in Vietnam and you suffered PTSD as a result. I have to ask, what was the general cause of the PTSD? And I understand it's kind of a loaded question. We all know what you went through in Vietnam to a certain extent, but to the extent
you have no
can
idea what I went through in Vietnam,
And
Mr. Esposito.
That's my question. Can you tell the jury, to the best of your ability, what it was about your service in Vietnam that resulted in this PTSD?
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Respectfully, it's too hard to talk about. It was such an insurmountable issue.
It took me 10 years to come back from Vietnam.
I understand.
I had no help. There was no PTSD when I came back. There was no funding for the VA. There was nothing. I was a baby killer. That's what I came back to
While you were defending your country.
while I was defending my country.
I understand. That had to be exceptionally hard. Life-changing even, correct?
It is what it is.
Okay. And you suffered a TBI as a result, traumatic brain injury?
That's what I was diagnosed with, yes.
Okay. Was that as a result of a specific accident?
Head trauma,
Okay. What was the cause of the head trauma?
combat.
Okay. So you had a combat-related injury that resulted in head trauma and a TBI, and you came back to a certain amount of animus on top of having to go through what you went through in Vietnam, correct?
General animus due to the anti-war fervor that was going on.
Of course.
I had friends and associates that, you know, were fellow veterans or who were ambivalent to my service. So it wasn't everyone that I ran into. There was just that sentiment, and there was no backup from the Veterans Administration to counter any of that stuff.
So effectively you were feeling stranded, left alone. Isolated, be a better word?
I've always been alone. I've always been independent. I have very little family, if ever. I joined the Navy at 17 because I had no family to support me.
Okay. And so really, to get to the point, Mr. Delmar, and you're exactly right, I can't remotely begin to imagine what you went through, but you did go through it. And this is who you were for a very long time before the real water incident ever happened. Would you agree with me on that point?
I agree with you to a point.
Okay.
For 10 years after my return from that point on, I was able to pretty much put those things behind me, those experiences deep buried in the past. People have different ways of dealing with trauma, and mine was to bury it, forget about it, and hope it never comes up.
Sure. Because you still can't talk about it in any great detail. So
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Thank you.
Wanted to get a sense of it, but obviously we're not here to talk about Vietnam, right, sir? And I mean this. Thank you for your service. I know everybody says that, but that was a huge sacrifice that you made.
I appreciate your comments.
So you said something that I found a little bit interesting. When you were talking about being in the VA hospital, you talked about being afraid of, and you used the phrase regimented care. What did you mean?
Regimented care?
Yes. You said you were afraid, you were talking about how you were afraid that the doctors of the VA were going to kill you.
Oh, well, I was getting massive doses of these steroids that were further dehydrating me, and I wasn't getting fluids. The nurses weren't responsive in bringing me water to drink. Nurse Rhonda showed me where I could pilfer some cranberry juice, and I was raiding that refrigerator constantly to dehydrate myself. Okay. So I was essentially caring for my own dehydration. So yes, I was afraid that I would die if I stayed in there under those circumstances.
Under that particular set of doctors' care, correct? Or lack of care, I guess would be the better way to phrase it.
Yeah, I don't know why they cut off my fluids when they're giving me massive doses of steroids.
Well, let me ask you this. Is that the first time that you've ever refused a doctor's prescription or care or recommended treatment?
My gut feeling is to answer that yes.
Okay. Well, let's go through a few things. As a result of the TPI or the TBI, excuse me, and the PTSD, we're not going to get into the why, as I promised. You were suffering from facial recognition issues and spatial recognition issues, according to your deposition testimony. Is that still accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were prescribed medication from a neurologist to help with these conditions with your brain, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. You don't recall a deposition testifying that you had medication made available to you for your neurological conditions and you chose not to take it?
I don't recall that, Mr. Esposito, honestly.
Okay. Your Honor, I believe we've laid the proper foundation for the deposition I'd asked to publish. Your Honor, I think you could seek to refresh his record. No, Your Honor, we can move on. This is not an exceptionally material point. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Delmar, moving along. Do you recall being diagnosed with I'm going to mispronounce this, dyslipidemia? Is that correct? No?
I don't know. Like I say, there was a lack of information that would be given to me from the VA doctors.
Okay. It'd be safe to say you don't really trust the VA doctors?
I have problems with that regard. Yes, I do, based on my experiences in the hospital.
Okay. And that was kind of the crux of the regimented care question, Mr. Delmar. Do you have a general distrust of medical providers overall?
Yes and no. I think that medical science is for emergency stuff, end-stage stuff, save your life, but day in, day out, maintenance and health, I think, falls on your shoulders if because I know how my liver's feeling. I know how my personal condition is. I think
trust
more than someone else would, even a medical professional.
Sure. You quite literally trust your gut.
Yes.
Okay. So when you were drinking the real water, you didn't notice any strange tastes or smells in the water, correct?
I didn't know.
Okay. So there was no indication for you personally that there could be anything wrong with the water?
No, sir.
Okay. And when you woke up on June 14th, I believe you testified that you were incredibly thirsty. Okay. Nauseous?
Yes.
And there was a lot of talk about trying to get your pants on and shoes and everything else, but I think you've described this as a loss of your equilibrium. Would that be fair?
Yes, it was like a constant dizziness and blurred vision. I mean, it was difficult orienting myself.
Okay. And yet, after the first night in the hospital, was it your prior testimony that you felt considerably better after the first day?
I was able to keep water down that morning. Not a lot, but I remember that I was able to sip and start hydrating myself. So in that regard, yes, Mr. Esposito, I did feel better.
Okay. And then you testified, I think previously, that ultimately, because you didn't feel that the VA was providing you with enough fluids, several days later you got up and just walked out.
Well, I made the doctor discharge me. I had to sign a release, but I made it clear to her, this new doctor, that I would be leaving regardless of whether she discharged me and arranged transportation for me or not. And she was kind enough to have me sign a release and discharge me and arrange for transportation for me back to my residence.
Perfect. And you're kind of in a unique situation here because you've testified that you stopped drinking real water immediately because of the potassium in the real water, correct?
I did.
Well done. The question I have for you, though, is this. Once you stopped drinking the real water, your symptoms went away, correct? Except for this small pain in your liver.
Well, they got better, yes. The totality of my symptoms, I think, are rather ambiguous. I don't know. You know, I've, like I say, my interest in music has changed. I'm not certain if that's real water or not. But the chronology of events from 2018 going forward, my life has changed significantly compared to what it was prior to June of 2018 when I was working 10, 12 hours a day tenaciously on my musicianship and songwriting.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you're at least speculating that drinking real water caused your music's interest to change?
I can't speculate on that. That's something that medical professionals would have to opine on. I'm just saying the chronology of events, my life has changed significantly since then.
Okay, and I think you also said that you haven't produced music in a while, and you think that real water may be the cause of your hesitancy to produce?
I'm suspicious of that, yes.
Okay. What else are you suspicious of? Any other particular effects in your life that you think real water might be causing?
Not really. I mean, I just... There's just so many little things in regard to my concentration, and I can't, put a tack on it. If there was a medical professional that said, well, do the test, and oh yeah, well, the real water caused all this stuff, then fine. But I'm a lay person. I only know the chronology of events as I'm relating to you, Mr. Esposito.
Fair enough. So I guess that begs the question, are you seeing a psychiatrist?
No, sir, I'm not. I've never sought psychiatric or psychological services in any regard.
Okay. How about a neurologist?
I'm not, no.
Okay. And are you talking to any medical professional that could possibly assist you with whether or not real water changed your taste in music or caused a delay in producing music?
I have not, sir.
Okay. Is there a reason why you've chosen not to go try and get those opinions?
I can't give you one, no.
Okay. And so, more broadly, I guess that means that you're not really treating right now for any of the symptoms that were associated with real water in 2018, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And you did mention one, the liver pain, right?
Yes.
Now, as I understand it, that you've described this as a dull pain similar to cramping, specifically when you twist to your right. Is that accurate?
Well, there's a dull pain there nearly constantly, I would say 50, 60% of the time.
Okay.
It varies in intensity, but if I twist my torso to the right and put pressure on my liver, that's when I get that sharp pain. And that's a 10 on a 10 scale as far as my pain meter goes.
Okay. And so I had a curiosity here, and this is a perfect chance to ask it. You use coffee enemas to get rid of the pain?
Coffee enemas don't get rid of the pain. I did coffee enemas in 2020 for a month and 2021 for a month because I felt my liver was dying. I was in constant, severe pain. And there's the Gerson Institute in San Diego recommends that type of holistic therapy. And coffee as an enema when held in your colon is right up against your liver and it jumpstarts your liver. That caffeine goes right into your liver and it gets things going. And when your liver starts getting active, your gallbladder and every other organ in your abdomen starts getting stimulated and things start happening. The 2 times that I did that were just very beneficial for me, and that was every morning for a month, about a year apart.
Okay.
And I believe that I brought myself up to the level I'm at least at now to where I'm functioning. And the pain is such, the discomfort is such that I can tolerate it.
Okay. And what was the name of that institute again? The Gerson? Institute?
Gerson.
Gerson.
Yes, Gersen, might have an H in there, but they have, they're most noted for treating cancer on a holistic basis. The website and that kind of stuff, information in there. I didn't get too far into that. I have a friend that's a big advocate of holistic care and treatment. He went to school to be a naturopathic doctor at one point in time. Oh, okay. And so he recommended that. I've really relied on him. It's my best friend in the world, Randy Mossberg, who recommended that I try that to see if it gave me relief. And both those times, it was very effective. And, you know, I believe I'm here today because of Randy's help and other advice he gave me regarding diet was very instrumental and influenced me.
So you've been able to, increase your overall health through the diet that Randy recommended?
I've been able to stay at a baseline and be able to function, get out of bed in the mornings, exercise. Yes.
Okay. And so we're going to move along. It's great news that you're able to take care of yourself in this way, Mr. Delmar. It really is. As far as the Dr. Stephen Sands recommendations that we discussed, you had to fill out questionnaires and tests in order for Dr. Sands, to make a recommendation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things he relied upon is that, and you've testified a little bit about this today, that those several days in the hospital were more stressful to you than your 2 tours in Vietnam. And you stand by that as you sit here today.
Given the different in times, Vietnam, as horrific as it was, I was young and hardy and resilient, and I was able to come back. 10 years, but I made it. I'm not so young and hardy and resilient any longer. I'm 76 years old,
Sure.
and I've got to deal with this for the rest of my life.
The pain in your liver, correct?
The entirety of what I've gone through and what I go through day in and day out. Yes, sir.
Okay. So speaking of what you go in through day in, day out, were you aware that your language abilities came back within the average range during Dr. Sand's testing?
I'm happy to hear that. Yes, I pride myself in my vocabulary. Yes, absolutely.
And that your cognitive abilities were well within the average range?
Right. That's good news. I didn't know that.
Fine motor skills within the average range?
Well, I try to stay physically active, so that's good news, but it's not surprising.
It's good for a musician to have those fine motor skills. Right? Yeah. And funny enough, your executive functioning, cognitive abilities, your executive functioning abilities, did Dr. Sands tell you that you were in the upper limits of the average range compared to your peers?
You know, I didn't discuss the findings with Dr. Sands. I did an MMPI, and then I had left, but I'm happy to hear that, absolutely.
Okay. And there was a notation in Dr. Sands. Robin, can we pull up 1206, please? This has been pre-admitted as Exhibit 1206.
Sorry, just loading.
Computers are always slow when you need them not to be. Now, do you recall seeing this chart, Mr. Delmar?
I'm sorry, Mr. Esposito, but specifically, I do not recall seeing that chart.
Okay. Well, I'm going to represent to you that this is what was put up on the screen when Dr. Sands was testifying, and he was talking about you. So, like we talked about, fine motor skills. WNL means within normal limits, right?
Okay.
Good news. Cognitive impairment also within normal limits, right? PTSD. Now, we've talked about this, that PTSD was in place long before you ever drank real water, correct?
Jackson Foundation.
What's the same?
Your Honor, he's previously testified that to be the case. Sure. As far as PTSD goes, Mr. Delmar, you've previously testified that you've had PTSD for decades, correct?
I was diagnosed with PTSD as a result of my Vietnam service, sir.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate you're helping me out now. Now, executive function, it says impaired. Now, your testimony with Counselor Pepperman was that you struggle to differentiate between PTSD symptoms and your TBI symptoms. Is that accurate?
That's fair.
Okay. So do you have any belief that any executive function impairments you may have could be related to that TBI?
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. Executive functions.
Sure. Did you suffer any cognitive defects? Did you slow down at all because of the TBI? Did you have trouble with your memory? Anything along those lines?
I believe that in some regard there was.
Sure.
Like I say, I functioned in a very important position representing injured workers for 25 years before I moved here. Hearings and trials and client meetings. So I think I had to be at some level of functioning.
Oh, and I don't think anybody's saying that you're not, a critical thinker. You obviously were able to make do, right?
Do what?
You were able to make do? You were able to go out there and get the job done?
Yes, absolutely.
Fair enough. And so let's go to the final one where it says personality problem. You see where it starts with cognitive?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
Does Dr. Sands talk to you about any of these particular categories of personality problems?
No, sir, he did not.
Okay. So you haven't had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Sands about what factors into those conditions that existed before or after drinking real water. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's see here. Perfect. Opposing counsel brought up the fibroscan. You recall that particular test?
Oh, yes, I do.
We're going to seek to append that to, or we can actually just make that a reduced exhibit. That's the end page of the results of the fibroscan. Yeah, let's see what we get. Figure it out. All right, so we're trying to admit as few of your medical records into the record right now as possible. Just get you through this. I'll represent to you that that fibroscan came back, and I'm going to state here, the median...
Objection is to counsel testifying. If he wants to ask a question, he can.
Sure. How about this, Your Honor? We would, let me show this to the witness and see if he's seen this before.
I have not seen this prior to today, counsel. There was a lack of communication, I think, on behalf of the Veterans Administration and the primary treater who ordered this. So I don't doubt it's true and accurate.
Your Honor, for the record, we have previously admitted pages of this particular exhibit that was originally 272. It's now 273. We would ask that under the rule of completeness, we can add the final page of the fibroscan report to that particular exhibit, or otherwise admit it as a sole page, 272, page 60.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yeah, you can.
Right. So, Your Honor, as I understand it, we are going to be dealing with the admission of this exhibit after the break, but we are okay referencing the contents at this time? Thank you very much, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Delmar, can you please go to where it says hepatic fibroscan? And just for the record,
Fibroscan procedure report, is that what you're referencing?
just above it, the two lines above it are the ones we're curious about.
Hepatic steatosis index, or CAP?
Let's start with the line right above that one, sir.
Okay.
Can you read that for the jury?
The median ECPA is reported at 4.1, indicating stage F0/F4 or no fibrosis.
So this came back showing that you had no signs of fibrosis in your scan, is that correct?
Okay.
Okay. Is that great news?
That's great news.
Great.
Great. There's nothing about my experiences with real water and the subsequent treatment and care that I would classify as great news, sir.
So having...
It's not bad news.
Fair enough. The next line, if you don't mind reading that for the jury.
The hepatic steatosis index, or CAP, is reported as 233, indicating no steatosis or SO/S3.
Perfect. So no fibrosis, no steatosis, correct? Okay. As you sit here today, nobody's told you that you need a liver transplant?
Thank God, Mr. Esposito.
No one's told you that you're going to need any kind of a surgery as a result of drinking more water?
No.
You're not doing routine monitoring or care with I believe you said you're not with a neuroscientist of any kind?
Not at the present, sir.
No psychiatrists or psychologists? You're just doing are you even going for general checkups with the VA at this point?
I haven't been.
Okay. So realistically, no doctors are involved in your life at all at this point?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. But you're committed to doing that going forward?
I would like to explore that. I'm curious. Like I say, through a private facility, yes,
Okay.
I would at least like to explore that. That's all I can say. The same with the cognitive therapy. Talk to someone. I don't know if there's answers that I'm looking for or not. I couldn't tell you specifically what cognitive behavioral therapy is, sir.
So why not, right?
Yeah.
But-
Why not get some answers? Certainly.
But just to clarify, you don't have a single treating physician that has ever recommended that treatment for you. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, sir. Yes.
Mr. Delmar, I appreciate you sharing your story. Again, thank you for your service and thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Can we approach this?
Very briefly. Mr. Delmar, you were asked questions about your struggles with concentration and executive functioning in terms of producing your music. Prior to your real water illness, did you have any problems with your concentration?
No, I was working 10, 12 hours a day at my music.
Prior to your illness, did you have any issues with the executive functioning, such as multitasking and writing, recording, and producing music?
Very little, if any, none that I could state that I recognized.
And prior to your real water injury, you had actually written and produced and recorded 3 albums, right?
5 actually, and I have a 5th with 18 songs that I did with Phil Jones in LA.
Since your real water illness, have you observed in yourself difficulties in all those areas?
Yes.
And you have not been able to continue to record music like you did before, have you?
I lack motivation and I become angry at myself when I can't perform certain functions, and I go out and go for a walk. I do something that I can engage in and enjoy.
Thank you for clarifying, JJ.
Sure.
Mr. Delmar asked this with all due respect, but how old are you?
76 years old.
76 years old, and you haven't seen any treating physicians with regards to any impact that your age may have on your health, have you?
Repeat that, please.
Yeah, you haven't seen a single treating physician with regards to any impact your age may have on your health, have you?
I'd have to say no, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Delmar.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one question from the jury, and this is from juror number 4, Mr. Dixon. Quote, did they explain at any point why they were giving you steroids only?
They never answered that question. There was just an absence of information other than the doctor didn't recommend it. That was my answer that I got when I said, why am I not getting fluids? The doctor didn't recommend it. The doctor will be in Monday morning. You can talk to him then.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a break. I will take 10. Ladies and gentlemen, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject matter connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report of the county if you want to trial any persons connected to this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitation, newspaper, television, radio, social media. Last but not least, we have formal trust any opinion on this matter until the case is submitted to you during deliberation.
All rise for the departure of jury.
Okay.
Ready.
We're ready, Judge. Okay. It was a marshal. And what do we need to do? Is Mr. Peppermint here, or?
Oh, we can do the video without him.
No, I thought we had reached an agreement on the redactions to that exhibit. Plaintiffs are refusing a particular redaction, so I just want the court to call balls and strikes, I guess, real quick, and we can move on.
Okay, is he here?
He's not here, Your Honor.
We can do it right after you have him hold it.
That's
As
fine.
soon as he gets back, after the video, we'll deal with it.
Just trying not to interrupt the jury again. We can do it whenever.
Oh, I understand. Oh, here he is.
So,
All right, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I guess we have another video. Is that
Yes, Your
correct?
Honor. We would call John Marlowe by video.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, state and spell your first and last name for the record.
John Marlowe, M-A-R-L-O-W.
Good afternoon, Mr. Marlowe.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Mr. Marlowe, where did you go to college?
Montana State University, Bozeman, Montana.
And what did you get your degree in?
General Studies.
You studied architecture?
I majored in architecture, but it's 5 years.
So you wanted to be an architect, but you didn't get the architecture degree.
My 5th year thesis was rejected, so I graduated in General Studies.
Did you take chemistry in college?
I was high school or college. I believe it was college, yes.
What happened?
Flunked it.
Take it again?
No,
You don't consider yourself a chemist, I take it,
no, I'm not.
and you've never taken a formal chemistry class at any time.
No,
Would you agree that you're not qualified to analyze the chemical process in making bottled water? You're not qualified to do that?
well, I followed the basic guidelines as I understood them.
Okay, but we're going to get into the guidelines.
Okay,
Just in terms of analyzing what's going on, you're not qualified to do that?
no, I'm not expert in that, no.
Okay. You're not an expert on water processing, for example,
No other than self-taught, no.
and you haven't had any courses you're self-taught, right?
Yes,
Now, at one point you were affiliated with Real Water,
yes,
and prior to working with Real Water or the invention that ultimately became Real Water, had you had any experience with any other water company?
no,
And same question, you had no other experience with any other alcohol water company, is that correct?
no.
When did you come to Bay? Roughly?
About 36 or 7 years ago.
Okay, so that would be, let me test my memory, 78? Or 78, 88, what?
I'm guessing. I have a real hard time with dates anymore, but
It's okay.
it's close.
And what'd you do when you came here?
I was manufacturing portable buildings.
Okay, nothing to do with water.
No,
Okay. Now, can you tell me, if you want to look at it closer, can you tell me what these are?
those are water devices that were developed in Russia.
Okay. And you bought these at some point in time? correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jury how it came to be that you bought these?
Well, I was introduced to a young couple that were from Russia. Their uncle, her uncle, had developed this, and I became fascinated with the whole process.
Okay, what was his name, if you remember?
Vadim and Svetlana were their first names. I don't remember their last name.
That was the couple, but the person who sold you the tools, his name?
Bakar Oh boy, I can't think of his last name right off.
Okay, it's okay. So how many of these tubes did you ultimately buy from him?
Probably 8 or 10, something in that range.
And did he tell you what they were for?
Oh yeah.
And what did he tell you? What did he tell you?
Well, it makes water alkaline or acidic, depending on which stream you're coming in and out of.
Okay, and did he give you instructions on how to use them?
Yes.
Was that oral or in writing?
Boy, I don't remember, but I would probably mostly oral.
Okay.
Had several meetings.
If you need to look at these, just let me know, okay?
No, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so can you just tell the jury how these things were supposed to work?
You have 2 streams of water go in and 2 streams of water come out.
Okay, there's 2 ports here, so
Yes.
one stream went in one stream went in the other.
Yes.
And then one stream came out, one stream came out.
And basically what happens is it splits the water in half. And by that I mean you have high concentration of hydrogen coming out of one side and high concentration of oxygen coming out of the other side.
Okay, and so have you ever cut these open or opened them?
I had one open.
Okay.
I dropped it and broke the diaphragm inside.
Okay, can you tell the jury what's on the inside that we can't see because of the titanium?
There's a ceramic separator in the center of those tubes.
Okay.
So when the streams of water are going through electrolytically, it holds the water apart.
Okay, and that's so one gets the negative and one gets the positive, correct?
Yes.
And the negative would be alkaline
Yes.
and the positive would be acidic?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and the idea is to get rid of the acidic and make the water more alkaline?
Well, that was my intent
Okay.
with the real water.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Do you remember how many struck it? Now, at some point in time, after you bought the tubes, did you start doing experiments?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what you did in terms of experiments?
I just played around with different concentrations of salts, as they're called, and variation of the amperage and voltage on the voltmeter.
Okay, and Shane, can I have that voltmeter up so I can make sure we know what we're talking about? Can you see there? There's nothing's up there.
No, I don't see.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what you mean by a voltmeter?
Yes, yes. There's
Go ahead.
one dial is amperage and the other is voltage.
Okay, so the amperage looks like it's the one on the left, correct? It says amps right there, you see that?
My eyes. Yeah, the left is amps.
And the right's volts.
Yes.
So you started playing around different amps, different volts.
Yes.
Okay.
I was guided by the Russians for the most part, but I did. You asked me what I was playing around with, and I varied it
The
at
people that
times.
sold you the tubes gave you some kind of general idea.
Right.
Okay. All right. And when you were, as you say, playing around or experimenting, did you actually produce product that was consumable?
In the latter stages, I was drinking it myself. Yeah.
Okay. And so, why were you drinking it yourself?
Well, my whole intent was to have a healthy water.
Okay. And so, when you were drinking it yourself, were you trying to see how you reacted to it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And did you have any adverse reactions at any time?
I got a gut ache when I went up to too high alkalinity, a higher degree of alkalinity.
Okay. And when you say 103 about validity, was there ultimately some validity level you hit that you liked?
I'm trying to remember, but I'd say I was probably up in the 11, 12 range at that point, which is way too high for what should have been.
And so alkalinity goes from 0 to 12. 0 is the
Well, the acid alkalinity goes from 0 to 12, yes.
So when you were doing the experiments, you got up to 11 or 12 sometimes,
I assume so, yeah.
and then you backed down.
Yes.
Remember how you backed it down? More juice, less?
Well, yeah, there were, depending on the amount of salt, depending on the amperage and voltage, there were variables involved, yes.
Okay. And when did you actually do this all? 10 years ago?
I'm guessing about 16 years ago was probably in the range.
If it's 2024, that would take us back to about 2008?
I think that's about right, yeah.
Great. Do you remember if it was before or after President Obama was elected, perhaps? Using that as a point time of reference?
I don't know.
Remember?
I'm sorry.
All right. So at some point, you got something that you thought tasted okay and you liked, right?
Yes.
And at that point in time, did you do any tests on any other people or any?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what you did?
My 2 or 3 good friends, my wife, and my dogs. I had 3 dogs at the time.
So you fed it all.
And everybody was having a positive for taste and hydration and all that, yes.
And how long did you feed it to them? Days, weeks, months?
I don't remember.
Okay. And did you do any formal testing of it? In other words, did you have a laboratory analyze what you were making or anything like that?
Other than what was required by the health department and that type of thing, I don't recall doing anything, no.
Okay, and would I be right that the health department usually, if it's an only bacteria and heavy metals like arsenic?
I didn't get real familiar with that most of, I used a private lab at the time.
Okay, so when you developed it, you did it in your house?
Yeah, I guess it was probably in the garage, maybe, I don't know.
So when you were doing all these experiments, moving the voltage up and down and the amperage?
Yeah, mostly at the home, in my home, yeah.
All right. But ultimately, you came to something that you thought was a good product, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you familiar with the process of animal testing, where you feed products to animals and see what happens? Generally familiar with that?
No, other than I did with my dog.
This product, all right?
I,
Did you do any?
my dogs drank the water.
Other than the dogs, did you do
No.
any type of testing?
No.
Okay. And have you ever heard of a testing machine called a GCMS, gas chromatograph mass spectrometry?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay. Did you do any testing on that?
I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know if the lab did or not.
So you've heard of it, but you didn't do anything?
No, I didn't.
And do you know of any testing that was done, screening testing, non-tolerant testing, any testing by anyone other than when we talked about the bacteria and the metals?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. And you're aware that at one point the hydrazine was found by the FDA to be in your water?
I'm aware, yes.
Okay. And prior to that time, did you even know what hydrazine was?
No.
Okay. Did you do at any time any non-targeted testing to find something like hydrazine?
No.
And with regards to your water, do you know whether they did that?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you expect, well, we'll strike that. At some point in time, you came to some sort of arrangement with Real Water where you gave them your technology.
Yes.
Okay. Remember when that was?
I'd say 13 years ago, I'm guessing, but I think that's pretty good.
And as part of the process, you actually made the concentrate for them?
Originally, yes.
Okay. And how long did you make the concentrate?
Probably 4 or 5 months. or maybe longer, right in there.
She can have the slide, please. We don't need to go through this because we've already gone through it a couple times. But basically, you would electrolyze purified water, and you run it through the tubes, and then you take 300 gallons and make it 150, then you do it again and make 150 to 75. That's how it's done.
Basically, yes.
And when you put the water through the tubes and you hooked up that charge pump on it, that was done for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours each time?
Probably, yes.
Okay. Great. So it was a constant charge at whatever you threw?
Yes.
So for 8 or 10 hours each time, the water was getting electrified and juiced?
Yes.
Did you give any consideration to the possibility that by electrifying the water, there would be some sort of chemical reaction?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so you thought there was a chemical reaction?
Yes, that's what happens, yeah.
Okay, the chemical reaction you're talking about is making the water more negative? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you think maybe there was a possibility that something else could be happening with the water?
No.
And you would agree that before someone sells the water to the public, they should know exactly what's in it, right?
Would you say that again?
Before a bottled water manufacturer sells their water product to the public, they should know exactly what's in it, right?
Yes.
And since you didn't know about the hydrogen, you didn't know exactly what was in the concentrate.
No, I guess not, no.
Okay. And with regards to the concentrate, the 150 gallons that you, or excuse me, 75 gallons, I guess you made, that was ultimately subdivided into this 5-gallon concentrate?
I don't know how, that was done at the real water. Exactly what they did, I wouldn't want to conjecture on because I didn't follow that.
You just made it in the concentrate room. Did you actually go there and make it?
No.
Where did you make it at? You said the 5 months.
When I originally supplied them prior to our agreement, I made it myself.
Okay.
And I made it in 3-gallon jugs at the time, and I was renting a small, what I'd call a shop or office.
Okay.
And I had the water hooked up and yeah.
And ultimately, they had a concentrate room done on, right?
Yes.
Did you make concentrate in?
I didn't get involved with them in that operation as far as how they broke all that down, no.
Did you teach Blaine Jones how to make the concentrate?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know where he made it at?
Yes.
Where did he make it at?
At the real water plant.
Do you know if there was a concentrate room, a separate dedicated concentrate?
Yes.
You actually in there?
Yes, I've been there.
Okay. And the formula was a big secret, right?
Yes.
And the concentrate room was restricted to you, Mr. Jones, maybe his father, anybody else?
Yes. Well, to my knowledge, that was it, yes.
Okay. And we talked about the FDA finding hydrogen in the water.
Yes.
That's something real water should have known about one way or the other before they sold the product.
Well, knowing what we know now, yes.
So I'm not saying you made a mistake, but someone made a mistake somewhere down the line.
Something went wrong, obviously, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Marlowe, good afternoon, Joel with you for Real Water. You doing okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
How old are you, Mr. Marlowe?
I'm 83.
So, when you first invented Real Water, it was about 16 years ago?
That's my best guess, yes.
Okay, and you were about 67 at the time you invented it?
If that's the math, yes.
I checked with my iPhone issue.
Okay. Yes.
The Chinese don't do that. Why did you become fascinated with alkaline water? What was it about alkaline water that
Well,
interested you?
Yes, and when I met this couple, we went over, they were living in an apartment, the two Russians, the man and wife. And my wife and I went over to their apartment and they had this setup and they showed it and explained it and I just thought it was fascinating.
Was there something about alkaline water that you liked?
Well, after I started researching water, self-taught again, alkaline water is, depending on what expertise you are involved with, is very healthy, and that was my experience.
And is that why you wanted to make it?
Yes, absolutely.
And you later met Brent Jones from Real Water.
Yes, I knew him prior to that.
And you talked to Brent Jones about this product, right?
Yes.
And did Real Water start in roughly 2008? Does that sound about right to you?
Is that 12, 13 years ago with your math?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Close enough.
Okay.
Your best recollection is fine, sir. We appreciate that. Appreciate your time today. When Real Water started production, do you recall them bringing in a consultant to talk about FDA compliance?
No, I wasn't involved with any of that, but I recall.
Okay, so when the company was set up, Real Water did that?
I assume so, yes.
Okay, so you weren't involved in the setup of the company?
I was involved in the setup of the devices and that sort of thing, but not the company, no.
Your involvement was in the making of the concentrate, is that
right? Yes.
And at the time that Real Water started in their business, you had a shop and you were making the concentrate.
Right.
And then at some point, you turned over the making of the concentrate to Blaine Jones, is that right?
Yes.
And then Blaine Jones would make the concentrate at the Real Water Desert Inn facility?
Yes.
And you would go over and supervise him making it?
Well, originally, I was there. Originally, I wasn't there hardly at all. They were in operation 11, 12 years.
Right.
And I wasn't there very often. Maybe once a month, if that.
In the beginning, though, you were there to help show Blaine how to make the concentrate. Is that
Yes, I was.
Did you have any participation? Real Water would send the water out to laboratories for testing. Did you have any participation in that?
No, I did not with that.
The times that you would get inquiries or questions from Blaine would be how to make the concentrate, is that fair?
Yes.
And were there times that he would talk to you about making the concentrate? Just general questions?
Well, yes, I guess so, yes.
So you were available, if he called you
Yes.
with a question, you were available to him?
Yes.
And over the years, as the business progressed, it sounds like you're getting those questions sort of tapered off, is that fair?
Yeah, I had very little involvement with them for the latter few years.
And the very first time that you heard that somebody had been injured from Real Water was part of the litigation, is that fair?
Say that again.
Yeah, the very first time you heard somebody said they got sick,
Yes.
it was after the lawsuit, isn't that fair? You don't understand the question?
No, not fully, no.
Okay. The first time you heard of hydrazine, was that part of the lawsuit?
Okay, yes.
Yeah. That was the very first time you ever heard of it, is that fair?
Yes, okay.
And you agree with that?
I guess yes.
Okay.
Now, after Mr. Jones started making Real Water, or Infinity more accurately, started making Real Water, did you drink the Real Water?
All the time.
The product that they manufacture in the plant you drank?
The bottled water?
Yes.
Constantly.
Are you on the home delivery program?
No, I just,
How did you acquire it?
they gave it to me. The perk of being who I was.
So you were a regular user since when?
I have been drinking this water longer than any person on this planet.
Okay. regard to your personal usage, you drink exclusively bottled water?
Yep,
drink other
exclusively what you would call real water. Have been until the supply dried up when they moved to Arizona. It wasn't available to me, but I'd go down there and take 6 cases and bring them home, and
Anyone else in your
for years.
household? Anyone else?
It's
in
the
your
only
household?
water I ever, yeah, my wife,
How many pets?
family, my sister,
Pets in
good
the
Lord.
household?
Pardon?
Any pets in the household?
We've had pets, yes, we always had 2 to 3 dogs for years and years and years.
Just feed them
And
real
they
water?
drink nothing but real water.
Any problems with any of the pets?
Nope.
But prior to the newspaper articles, you hadn't heard of anyone becoming sick, even tummy aches from drinking real water?
No.
Okay.
Is that it? That's it, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, plaintiffs would call Abraham Olvera as the next witness.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
Abraham Olvera, A-B-R-A-H-A-M-O-L-V-E-R-A.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Abraham.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, jurors. Are you nervous?
Maybe just a little bit.
A little bit? Okay. Well, let's rip the Band-Aid off. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I was born and raised here in Las Vegas. I love sports. Anything with physical contact, I love sports. I wouldn't say I have a favorite sports team. I'm more of a bandwagon. I like every team. I just like watching sports in general.
Okay.
And yeah, I graduated from Las Vegas High School. And yeah,
All right. How old are you now?
I'm 20.
Okay. And do you like to do anything for fun now?
Honestly, right now the sports world is crazy, so I love watching sports. And I love playing with my dogs. So yeah.
All right. And do you mind speaking up just a little bit
Yes,
for me?
yes.
Thank you. All right. So I want to move to your experience with real water now. So let's go back to when you got sick. Were you drinking real water at the time?
Yes, I was.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 15.
Okay. And when do you remember starting to feel sick?
It was very late October and very early November. So it
And
was
what year was that in?
You what?
What year was that in?
2020.
Okay. Was there any event that reminds you of when you got sick?
Yes, it was a day of, I would say before Halloween. We went to a party, Halloween party, and that day I wasn't feeling good. I remember being outside, like a normal day, being outside with the neighbors playing sports, and then all of a sudden I just started feeling ill. I was having headache, fatigue, feel like I needed to throw up, and I wasn't feeling right, but I really wanted to go to this party, this Halloween party. And I remember when we got there, I started eating some food, and then I just wasn't feeling right. I wanted to throw up. So I went to the side of the house and I threw up. And then from that day on forward, that whole week after Halloween, I was very sick.
Okay. What sort of other symptoms were you feeling after that party?
Very, very fatigued. I couldn't barely stand. I felt very weak. I felt like I needed to throw up anything I ate. And yeah, that's most of it.
Was there anything that happened that made you or your parents decide to take you to the hospital?
Yes, it was the Friday from that week. It was that Friday where I told my mom that I can't be on the Chromebook because I don't have a charger. And my mom's like, okay, we'll go to the school and we will get you a new charger. And I remember getting into the car, we drove to the school, and we're standing in line, and I'm telling my mom, I'm like, I can't stand. I want to sit down. I feel dizzy. I want to throw up. My mom was like, no, you're going to stand right here with me and we're going to get this charger. And then I just kept begging her, like, please let me go sit down by those steps. Let me just take a break. And that's when she was like, yeah, something's very wrong. We need to go to the hospital.
Okay. Do you remember what happened when you were admitted to the hospital?
Yes. Well, I remember getting there, but just it was the peak of COVID, so we had to wait in the waiting room after my test results came back from COVID, and that's when they put me to the third floor, the ICU, and from there I was just laying in the hospital bed with IVs and needles poking me. And yeah.
Shane, can you please pull up what has been already admitted, Exhibit 390, page 1? Okay, Abraham, so you were admitted to the hospital on November 6th, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I want you to look at the beginning of that paragraph where it says the patient presents with 6 days of fatigue, 3 days of anorexia, so not eating, abdominal pain, dizziness, and 2 episodes of emesis, which is vomiting. Does that sound like the symptoms you were having before you went to the hospital?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And once you were at the hospital, how did your symptoms progress?
Well, I would say the first 2 days in the hospital, I was still very sick. And then I was feeling better. Towards the 3rd, 4th day, I was feeling better. I was finally able to eat. And yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to that first day when you were at the hospital. What do you remember the doctors and nurses doing to you when you were admitted?
I remember they were just getting some blood work. They were poking IVs in me every 2 hours or so. And at first they were like, we don't know what's wrong with you. You can go home now because the test results are coming back normal as if nothing ever happened. And my mom's there like, no, my son is very sick. Look at him. He's not going home. Please do more tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Shane, that first page of Exhibit 390 again, the bottom paragraph, I just want to draw your attention to your AST levels. They showed at 912 and your ALT at 465. Did the doctors inform you that your liver enzyme tests were really high after you had that blood work done?
Yes.
Okay. And then a little bit later in that paragraph, it says you had an abdominal ultrasound, which demonstrated echogenicity of the liver. Did the doctors inform you that your liver looked concerning in any way?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
They said that my liver was very bad and it looked like I have taken an entire bottle of ibuprofen as if I was depressed, trying to kill myself or anything. They just said it was very bad and that if it doesn't progress, if it doesn't get any better, that they will fly me out for a liver transplant.
Okay. And I just want to clarify for everyone, were you depressed at all?
No, I was not.
Did you take a bottle of ibuprofen?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you said you were in the ICU, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Shane, could you go to page 2 of Exhibit 390? So this is the physician attestation of you being in the ICU. It says this patient has a critical illness that requires constant monitoring. Failure to provide this level of care may result in further organ system dysfunction or death. Did the doctors convey to you that your situation was this serious?
Yes, it was.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel confused because I was always outside playing. I'm healthy at that time, very healthy. And it's just, I was just very confused on how I could just all of a sudden could just get sick. And just, as it says right there, I could lead to death. So I was very concerned and very scared. Yes.
And you previously just testified that the doctors had indicated that if you didn't improve, you would need a liver transplant. Is
Yes,
that correct?
correct.
Okay. And did that news make you feel any particular way?
Yeah, it scared me a lot. Like, I just hate thinking about it because it scares me and it concerns me a lot. Yes.
And then, do you remember if any pictures were taken of you when you were in the hospital?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Shane, could you please pull up pre-admitted exhibit 384? And what is this a picture of?
That's me with, yeah, I don't like seeing that. Just those IVs and needles. That's me.
How did it feel when you were laying there with all the IVs and needles in you?
It felt very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, especially waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning with the nurses changing out my IV from my wrist up here to like right here. So, yeah.
Okay. And did you drink any real water while you were in the hospital?
No, I did not.
Do you remember eating or drinking much of anything while you were there?
Very little. I remember eating Jell-O and I threw up at the hospital.
Okay. And toward the end of the hospital stay, how were you feeling?
Towards the end, I was feeling better, that I could finally eat a meal for once.
And how long do you remember being in the hospital for?
Like 4 days.
4 days. Okay. And Shane, could you just pull up page 6 of Exhibit 390? So here it shows the date, November 9th, 2020, and it says just discharge okay per GI, will follow up in 2 weeks. So at this point, you were aware that you were going to be able to go home. Is that correct?
Yes.
But did you have to do anything else after you were discharged?
I remember getting blood work done.
Okay.
Like right after the hospital.
Okay. And did you have any appointment after that to discuss the results of your blood work?
I don't recall, but if anything, my mother had gotten the test results from, yeah.
Okay, and Shane, can you go to page 7 of Exhibit 390? Abraham, how about you look over this and let me know if that refreshes your memory as to whether you had a follow-up appointment.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I could get a vision of it, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember having an appointment to discuss the results of your blood work?
I believe so, but I forgot the answer to it, so yeah.
Okay. So you don't remember the details of it?
Yeah, I don't remember the details of it, but I do remember going.
Okay. And then, so after you were discharged, were you still worried about anything?
I was confused, and I was also worried about the future, worried about, will this happen again? You know, because they said that my liver was very bad, like it was very bruised. So I was more concerned of the future, but also just very confused about the whole situation.
Okay. And are you aware of Dr. Hudson's recommendations of future medical monitoring of your liver?
Yes.
And are you committed to following those recommendations?
Yes.
And then are you aware of Dr. Sand's recommendations that he testified to previously about receiving neuropsychological monitoring and treatment?
Yes.
And are you committed to following those recommendations?
Yes.
And then finally, Abraham, can you just tell the jury how this experience has affected you?
Well, yeah, it affected me very bad because it's more like, will this happen again? You know, I was very worried about, you know, will I leave the hospital, and more of, will this happen again? Will I have to go through this again? Which I don't want to happen. Yeah.
All right, those are all the questions that I have for you at this time.
Thank you, Jim. Cross-examination.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Olvera.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I met you during your deposition a few months back.
Yes.
Do you remember your deposition?
Yes.
It was in November of 2024.
Yes.
Okay, it's good to see you again. You're 20 years old now?
Yes.
Okay. At the time of the deposition, I remember you were talking about looking for a job and hoping to get a job at the Amazon warehouse by your
Yes.
house.
Yes.
Did you get that job?
Well, no, I haven't, but I've been getting alerts of new jobs around the area.
Okay, so you're still
Recommended by warehouses, yes.
okay. You're still looking.
Yes.
Okay. In the meantime, are you in school or taking any vocational classes or
No.
anything?
No.
Oh, yeah. Also, at the time of the deposition, you were talking about getting your driver's license. Did you get that
Yes.
yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I've been busy, not yet.
Okay. Yeah. You got to go through the permit process and.
Not yet.
Okay. You still plan to get your license?
Yes.
Okay. You also testified about wanting to join a gym with your brothers and
Yes.
get more physically fit and active.
Yes.
Have you followed any of those?
Well, maybe not at the gym, but at home we have a weight bench and we have weights you could, curl with.
Okay. Oh, I remember you. You said you had like a bench press competition
Yes,
with your brothers.
Yes.
And your older brother was the champion, I guess, at that time.
Well, as of right now, he's not. So.
He's not. Did you
No, he's
overtake
not.
him?
I did. Yes,
Oh,
sir, I
great!
did. Yes,
Great.
sir, I did.
I remember you talking about that
Yes.
being one of your goals is to
Yes.
competition among brothers, huh?
Yes.
Well, that's good. Now I want to talk about your illness and visit to the hospital in November of 2020. You started feeling nauseous and tired and generally not well. You thought you had the flu?
Correct.
And it just wouldn't go away, and so you went to Sunrise Hospital?
Correct.
And you talked about when you were admitted getting hooked up to an IV. Did they tell you were getting vitamin K?
I don't recall.
Okay. Did any medical provider tell you you had a vitamin K deficiency?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, you had real water at your home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your mom, dad, and brothers drank it, but they didn't get sick?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You never had to undergo a liver biopsy?
No, never.
And you talked about mention of a liver transplant or going to a liver transplant center, but you never had to do that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Besides getting the IV and having them take blood tests and observing you, was there anything else done at the hospital?
No.
Do you remember a doctor telling you that you did not have encephalopathy?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you, Robin, can you pull up Exhibit 390, page 8? Blow that up at the top there. That's the date of admission on November 6th. And it says you're alert, tired, no encephalopathy.
That's correct.
Okay. Were you here when Mr. Kemp was doing the opening statement? He talked about encephalopathy being a brain condition that causes confusion and pressure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you didn't have that, so
No.
that's good news.
Okay, correct.
Okay. And you were in the hospital, you said, for 4 days. Went
Yes.
in on the 6th, and then was discharged on the 9th?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the doctors telling you that your blood tests and liver function tests were improving each day while you were in the hospital?
Yes, they were.
And I think you testified after day 2, you started to feel better.
Correct.
Okay. In your deposition, do you remember saying on the last day in the hospital when you woke up, you felt normal again?
Correct, I did.
Okay. I think I remember the last day you were looking forward to going home. You said your mom's a good cook and you were looking to stop eating the hospital food.
Yes, that too, but more of I want to go back outside, play football and basketball with the neighbors. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Get back to normal.
Yes.
All right. Well, do you remember what your mom made for dinner that first night home?
No, I don't
Okay,
recall.
that was a long time ago. Robin, would you pull up 390, page 10? Okay. This is a discharge record. Down at the bottom, a little farther there, 11.9. So all labs improving, patient at baseline, tolerating a regular diet, up and out of bed. Is that how you recall your last day in the hospital?
Yes.
All right, you were getting up and walking around, getting a little stir crazy?
Yes.
Okay. Back to baseline. Do you know what baseline means?
No, I don't.
You think it means back to the health you were before you got ill and went into the hospital?
Yes, sounds about correct.
Okay. If you'd pull up that same exhibit 390, page 12 and then 13. Okay, up at the top shows the date. Oh, 12, is that 12?
It's page 12.
Okay, would you check 13, page? Okay, up at the top, S there. This was, I think, you had do you remember having a follow-up telemedicine visit the day after you got discharged?
I don't recall.
You don't recall, okay. If you go back to 12, I think there's a date at the top, if you show that, Robin. All right, well, never mind, I don't see the date on there. Anyways, there was, if you go back to 13, please. There was a follow-up visit on the 10th where it states, he feels fine currently with no abdominal pains. Patient just got done eating dinner. And some of your mom's good cooking again?
Yes.
My mom was a good cook too, and so was my wife. As you can tell, I indulge. Okay. Now there's a record. It's 390-14. This is your final follow-up visit for December 2nd, 2020. Robin, if you could pull up that, please. Okay, at the top there, there's the date at the top there. There you go. If you could blow up that there. Okay, so this was another visit you had, and this is my understanding the last doctor visit you've gone to. Down at the bottom, under assessment and plan, it says LFTs, liver function tests, are now normal and plaintiff is asymptomatic. Mother states he has no other complaints. Does that sound accurate about that time in?
Yes, it does.
Okay. That's great news. Now, my understanding is that's the last time you've gone to a doctor for anything. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You haven't gone to any medical provider or hospital again?
No.
And so the last time you saw a doctor for any reason was December of 2020?
Yeah, that's what I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Okay. You talked about, you had to have a meeting with Dr. Stephen Sands,
Yes.
and he gave you a bunch of tests?
Yes.
Okay. Did he give you any recommendations?
No, he didn't.
Okay. But you've heard sitting here over the few days, there was discussion of recommending some counseling?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever tell Dr. Sands that you didn't have any medical treatment or counseling in the last 4 years?
No.
Okay. Did he ever ask?
No, I don't recall.
Okay. Have you ever met with a Dr. William Hudson?
I don't recall.
Okay. He's an expert that's going to be testifying later on. Do you remember anyone telling you, recommending future medical monitoring?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the doctor who told you that, or
No, I don't.
do you recall where you heard that from?
Yeah, I do recall where I heard that
Was
from.
it just in court here recently?
It could have been.
Okay. But you haven't had any medical monitoring or treatment whatsoever in the last 4 years, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, you haven't had any doctors, no follow-up visits?
No.
Okay. No medical monitoring?
No.
Okay. No psychological counseling?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. No more questions.
Thank you, sir. And you read the back.
No, Your Honor.
We have a couple questions, Ron.
All right, for the record, you do have one question from jury number 11, and I made a determination not to ask it. And so I think, ladies and gentlemen, this would be a good time to go home. What do you think? All right, thank you. Anyway, remember you're admonished, not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject matter connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial by any person connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio, social media prohibition. And last but not least, from the form of expressing an opinion on any subject matter connected with the trial which process finally submitted to you. 10:30.
10:30, I'll rise for the purchase of jury.
Oh, what time is
Jury's clear, please.
All right, thank you. Okay, counsel, I just have one last question regarding the proposed exhibit. What number was this?
It would be the other page from whatever the exhibit number is.
Okay, Mr. Pepper now. Anyway, I'm reading here. I just want to make sure I have context. I understand we had a fibro scan conducted back on November 3rd of 2021. And the way I read it is this. Apparently, the results of the scan was essentially this. They say, quote, the median EKPA is reported at 4.1, indicating stage FO/F4 or no fibrosis. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. And down here, when I look at the comment section, I understand the issue regarding the alcohol. Was there a biopsy done?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. This is what I'm going to do then. Because the way I read it, wouldn't the need for evaluation for cirrhosis be a biopsy, further evaluation?
Well, just probably committing a FibroScan is the FibroScan results need to be explained by an expert. We can't have a plaintiff defense attorney stand up and say, oh, this means 0 to 4 means this. Because actually, when you look at how high his number is there, I think it was 4 something out of 20. Yeah, 4 out of 20 is probably stage F, F1 or F2. If you get an expert that's going to interpret it. And they do have an expert.
But I'm reading it, the way I read it, Mr. Kemp, there was no fibrosis. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're wrong on that, Your Honor, because it's, like I already said, the numbers.
Yeah, no, take a look. This might be a different one.
No,
It says-
I know what the report says, Your Honor. I'm just saying that requires an expert to say that.
Okay.
And I think the only issue before the court, correct me if I'm wrong, is just the one sentence about testing for cirrhosis.
Right.
That's the only thing at issue between the parties at this point.
Well, no, Your Honor, the issue is they intend to use this as some sort of evidence that he doesn't have any fibrosis. That they don't have an expert that's going to interpret the scan and say that.
This is brand new.
Doesn't matter if it's brand new or not. They don't have. They're trying to give an expert interpretation of a FibroScan. And FibroScan's a tricky little thing, Your Honor. There's a lot of dispute with regards to FibroScans. One of the defense experts, we took his deposition, basically gave us an opinion that FibroScans were unreliable and shouldn't be used at all. That was a defense expert said that in this case, not in this specific case, but in the real water litigation. And so for them to come in and want the attorney to be the expert and wave this around and say, look, this proves there's no fibrosis, that is a medical opinion that they haven't provided in the case, and it requires expert testimony.
Your Honor, we've had Counsel Peppermint or Kemp Jones stipulate to putting this on the record. The only remaining issue here is whether or not to redact this. I don't know where Mr. Kemp is coming from. The 2 pages before this were pre-admitted or were admitted by stipulation showing the FibroScan. This is the completion of the record. So under the statutory doctrine of completion, this would go in anyways. Now, yes, an expert can opine on it, but that's not the issue before the court.
Well, an expert can opine on it, but if counsel tells me he's not going to refer to it during the closing statement and make the exact argument that I just referenced,
I'm not making
I'll
any
stop.
representation.
See, Your Honor, that's the problem.
Don't have that.
They're trying to be the expert and use the FibroScan to give some sort of testimony that this plaintiff doesn't have any significant fibrosis. They didn't hire a doctor to do that, and that is a medical opinion that's required from a doctor.
Your Honor, this is a completely separate issue that has not been put before the court. Just has nothing to do with whether or not we include this language in the exhibit. But like I said, it's a balls and strikes issue. The court.
But I mean, what's changed is the basis for the objection for the admission of this record. That's what's changed. And so we're taking a position from the plaintiff's perspective, the record doesn't come in at all?
That's correct, Your Honor. Especially for the way they intend to use it.
The record's done, Your Honor.
Well,
like I said,
actually-
first and foremost, they elicited the testimony as to the FibroScan in their draft. They're the ones that brought it up. They're the ones that asked their plaintiff about it. And so we pulled the final record of the same report that was authenticated and admitted and deemed to be relevant by plaintiffs. And all we're doing is completing the record. That's it. And there's a statutory right to do so.
And when you say a statutory right to do so, what do you mean?
Pull it up, Your Honor.
I mean, what does that
The plaintiff
mean?
can say he had a medical test, all right? The plaintiff and the defense attorney cannot.
Because at the end of the
interpret
day, ultimately, what it comes down to, there has to be a proper foundation for the opinion, and if we're gonna use the two, because this is all new to me. I don't mind saying it, it's all new to me.
Your Honor, I'd be happy to submit the deposition of the expert that their expert that they hired in a previous case that discredits FibroScans and says they're not a reliable tool, and that he's actually been doing a study to prove that exact point. He's published a paper on it. And so for him to say that when his own expert that Real Water hired and paid says FibroScans are unreliable, that he, the attorney, can stand up to the jury and say, look, this proves there's no fibrosis, that's just not allowable, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we don't, first of all, we're not relying on the alleged testimony of an expert that isn't being presented in this case. I don't understand what Mr. Kemp is getting at, but I think it's irrelevant.
But I mean, ultimately, for what purpose is this report coming in? Is it coming in to establish there was no fibrosis?
It is coming in, yes, to show that he had a
There we
medical
go.
test done, he had a FibroScan done, and that it came back with no fibrosis. That's black and white, that's a medical record. And it's a completed record because they've already introduced half of it. And it's misleading to the jury to present evidence that a FibroScan existed and not present what actually came out of it.
They should have had an expert testify that, Your Honor.
Shouldn't have introduced it, Your Honor.
They opened the door.
Well, but we haven't introduced the entire record.
Then that's our point, is you can't introduce one page of a two-page document, Your Honor.
Okay, well, what do we do then?
Your Honor,
Because at the end of the day, I mean, come on, everybody understands this. When it comes to issues regarding diagnosis, unless there was an agreement, you have to have expert testimony to interpret it. For example, I'm sitting here reading it myself, and I'm trying to give it some sort of interpretation, and apparently I don't have it right.
It literally says in black and white, no fibrosis.
Your Honor, I would be
but-
happy to bring their expert's deposition tomorrow where he says these are not reliable diagnostic tools.
Ultimately, it comes down to this then, because we can look at it from this perspective. Let's dig down another layer. If that's the case, then it doesn't meet the assistance requirement under Hallmark, right? Oh, I don't know why you're looking at it that way. If your own expert's saying it's unreliable,
We don't have an expert in this case that
well,
is.
if somebody's deposition was taken. See, here's my point, and it's really this simple. If there was a stipulation that this would come in, I'd let it in. Okay. Secondly, there appeared to be an issue regarding whether the alcohol should come in regarding 35 years of usage, and that was the objection I was looking at it from. I read the report, and when I look at it, it talks about a median ECPA is reported at 4.1, indicating stage F0/4 or no fibrosis. Then the next issue comes up and being presented with that there's a question as to whether or not fibroscans are reliable. I asked one question, and so I guess I was getting to it about a roundabout way, because here it still says needs an evaluation for cirrhosis. That's what it says. So if this was a, quote, reliable test, why do they need an evaluation for cirrhosis? And then last but not least, that's why I asked the question I asked, was there a biopsy?
It was not, Your Honor.
So is the court questioning whether or not the test that was given is valid in the first place? I'm struggling.
Well, no, I'm not struggling. They're objecting to it being valid. I mean, and sir, you can smile, but it says down here, it says needs an evaluation for cirrhosis. Why is that there? And here's my point. I don't have any foundation for this.
Your Honor, I think their objection is effectively waived, considering they introduced the FibroScan to the plaintiff in the first place. They can't now sit back and say, well, this test that we asked him about, that we implied meant, that he had a certain medical condition, is admissible.
Well, here's my
say,
question.
But the ultimate results of that test are not.
Well, they're objecting to the ultimate results of the test right
Exactly
now.
right, Your Honor.
I mean, they are.
But they already, in front of the jury, put the FibroScan test in front of the plaintiff and asked him about it.
Right, and as far as the test results, I mean, and I don't think he testified regarding what the results were, did he?
No, he did not, Your Honor. And again, I would be more than happy to bring the deposition tomorrow. I'll bring 5 copies. This was their retained expert. He was I can't remember his name, but he was a Texas doctor.
But I don't even know if we have to go there, because ultimately, I mean, I don't know anything about a fibroscan. I don't. But that's why I asked the question, because if it was reliable and it was used for diagnostic purposes, didn't I ask? I said, well, why is there a need for an evaluation of cirrhosis? And that's why I said, my question was, has there been a biopsy conducted?
Right, and their expert testified that this was not a reliable way to do this. And on top of that, he was doing a study that for publication, having all his crew in his center do a study for publication to show that this is unreliable. That's their expert, not this case, but in the previous case. So with counsel knowing that his own expert says this is unreliable, is trying to get this admitted so he can give the jury his interpretation of it. And if he wanted to give an interpretation of a FibroScan, he should have hired an expert to do that.
Right, I didn't provide the jury with any interpretation of the FibroScan. I simply asked Mr. Delmar if he was aware of the results, which are in black and white. There's no room for interpretation for the 2 words, no fibrosis. Now, they had that now get up and say, this is a 4-point scale. There's 0 to 4. That specifically says on the 4-point scale that Datnow already testified to, it's a 0 out of 4. So the jury's already been educated on that. It's a
Well,
black and white
actually,
representation.
it's my recollection that the 4-point scale was based upon biopsies.
Yeah, the 4-point scale is a biopsy rating system, Your Honor. It has nothing to do with fiber scan. And that's the problem here. You have an attorney pretending to be an expert, trying to draw a conclusion from this that's flat out wrong and contradicted by the previous expert that he hired. And I'll bring his deposition tomorrow and he can see it. And he already told the court what they're going to try to do. He admitted it. He said, we're going to stand up in front of the jury and I'm going to give my interpretation that this proves there's no fiber
I
scan.
said no such thing, counsel. I
You
appreciate
said
if you didn't
yes. When the
misrepresent my
judge
comments.
asked you what you were going to do, you said yes.
No, the judge asked me.
For
why-
what purpose? And I always ask that question. And ultimately, it really comes down to this. This is what piqued my curiosity. I don't mind saying it for the record. Needs evaluation for cirrhosis. I mean, that's why I went through it and I kept reading it and say, what does this mean? And I don't know. I mean, because put it this way, if this was definitive as far as no fibrosis, why did they put down here needs evaluation for cirrhosis? I don't know. Right? Because at the end of the day, that's what the ultimate question would be. Anything else?
Just the court's ruling, Your Honor. What are we doing with the document? Are we excluding that page, but including the fiber scan documents that were already admitted by the plaintiff?
Well, it depends on the call of the question, ultimately. What's the call of the question?
What is the court's order with regards to admission of this
I
document?
mean,
Excluding this
well, the
document?
bottom line is this: we have no foundation for this.
For the conclusion.
Yeah, we have no foundation for it. So what do we do with the other document?
I mean, we can withdraw the other page of the exhibit if that's the concern.
Because at the end of the day, yeah, you need evaluation for cirrhosis. I'm not a liver doctor. I don't know what that means. I really don't. What the bottom line is. Anyway, there's no foundation for it. And let's go ahead and make the record clean. We'll pull the prior document. And which exhibit was that?
273, so 273 is no longer admitted?
No longer admitted.
Only the last page of 273.
Only the last page.
Yeah.
What's the last page of 273?
So,
I believe it's 6.
What's the first few pages?
273, 1 through 6, I believe. Yes.
We can mark this as a-
Page 6.
We
so,
can,
273, Bates 005, is that the one that we're withdrawing? It's no
No.
longer?
It's Bates 006.
I don't have that. Or, wait a minute, it's stuck. I do have that. So I'm withdrawing that. So then are we gonna make these two documents the new 272? Because
No.
that's what was proposed earlier. It was either 272 or add it to 273.
Well, that page isn't coming in at all, so I think the final exhibit would be the 273 with the 1 page removed, if I understand correctly.
Correct. So the only exhibit that's being admitted is 273, 1 through 5. That's the new 273, no change to 272, which is not admitted.
Except that there has to be a record on this because it's proposed. So there still has, like, these two
Oh, then that-
pages still have to go to the vault.
That can
Yeah.
be proposed exhibit 272.
Okay, so
I think we
there's
should
two
attach
pages.
them all in the same exhibit just for ease of appeal.
Right,
There's-
exactly.
along with this,
So,
make a
Bates-
record of proposed and rejected.
So
something like
Bates 272 0060 and 273 0006 are now the new 272 offered and rejected.
Correct.
Correct.
Cool.
I don't see what's so complicated about that, Tori.
And then I have a question. John Marlowe's testimony, it was the prior trial testimony, and then at the end was a clip of the deposition. Which deposition, because I have to publish it for the transcript.
I think you have the list of it, like the
There's a
specific date.
May 10th of 21 or December 16th of 21.
Yep, hold on.
It's I have June 14th, 2021.
I think it said May on this screen.
That was the deposition.
Right,
She's talking
Shane?
about trial transcript.
Pardon me?
What trial was
Why
that
would the
from?
transcript page just have the date?
Deposition, what's the date of the deposition for John Marlowe, please?
5/10/21.
May 10th? Great, thank you.
And Judge, we were originally going to do the video objections.
Yes.
I don't know what your schedule is tomorrow, but if we could come back a little earlier than 10:30, maybe we could knock those out. I don't know what your schedule is.
It all depends. You have to talk to co-counsel, Mr. Parker. He has a motion on tomorrow.
We'll tell him.
What time's his motion on?
Yeah, he does. He has a motion to dismiss tomorrow.
We have White Rocks and we have Copper.
Oh, okay.
So we've got topics.
What's the first one? I'm not worried about Capo Platinum. We're pretty much done with that. White
That's the one
Rocks.
that's been taking the majority of our time.
Which one is White Rocks? That's,
It's the shift again.
and didn't I grant summary judgment on that? I think so. Depends on how long it's gonna take for this.
Your Honor, just out of curiosity, does the court have an inclination on any of these at this point?
Well, I just wanna hear, I don't prejudge, because how many do we have here? How many is it?
I believe there's 3, and there's maybe 3 questions each one.
Yeah.
It's probably,
Marlowe, we know so.
yeah, Marlo we did, so
There's two.
10:15.
10:15, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, the jury's gonna be late anyway.
I have Edward's missing videos.
Awesome, thank you.
10:15, the jury's gonna be, and I've already prepped for tomorrow, so.
Off the record?
Yeah, off the record. Time to go.